They had not had any autonomy or authority, and they were very willing to let me just be very candid and frank with them. And they handled this whole thing with such grace and poise, and they had to make so many difficult decisions and wrestle with issues, and they learned about the reality of a death penalty case. And it became clear in this case that the likelihood of Ms. Waterman ever being executed in their lifetime was almost zero. We still to this day lack control because the federal government has primary jurisdiction. So even if we got a death verdict at any time, the Federal Bureau of Prisons could have just taken her back. There's nothing we can do about it. So the case was not difficult in the sense of who did it. The investigators did such a great job on that. It was all of these other issues, right? And we had met with the family while Ms. Waterman was in federal custody in Missouri, like over the last 3.5 years, met with them constantly. But when the case came to Arkansas, there was immediately a double jeopardy challenge from defense, and that has to get appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court before we can proceed. There are now multiple other appeals that are on this case. We're gonna have to wait for resolutions, and then those resolutions will get appealed, right? Then you have the medical issues and all those things. So heartbroken for the family that it was one obstacle after another. They handled it with such grace. And at the end of the day, I just deferred to them, and I always told them it was up to them. And they, I think, just were so, I don't know, wise and thoughtful at every turn. And this was their choice. And so, we just worked our tails off to try to do what we could for them.
Do you feel like justice was served in this case?
I always tell families, I think I told the Boones when we first met, at the end of this case, nobody's going to be happy. There's not a happy ending to these things, no matter what the result is. I think they have salvaged as much satisfaction as anybody could. It's really impressive. I think that either a death verdict or life without parole, I think both of those things are just. I don't think either is unjust. So it's not completely satisfying, but these cases never are.
Can you walk us through, we were in a hearing just a few weeks ago, and now today, can you walk us through what changed between then and now and the change of plea? Can you kind of explain to us what went on?
Yeah, sure. So there's several issues that came up in the hearing that would cause delays in the case. Those were always there in the background. Some of them came up recently, right? But we knew behind the scenes when the attorneys from both sides were talking, we just had a sense that this thing is going to get delayed, and there's not really anything we can do about it. It's not the court's fault or our fault. And so as that started happening, and I'm going to guess, I'm speaking for the family a little bit, but as they sat through, half a day motions hearing, and then started hearing about the different dates, right, of the case being reset, we visited after that hearing, like we usually do. And Randy looked at me and said, "Josh, will she ever be executed?" And I had to tell him, almost certainly not in your lifetime, if ever. And I think that's what changed, is they recognized they needed to heal. And I think it's a good thing, after this runs on the evening news, let's let Amber Waterman be forgotten. We'll remember Ashley Bush and Valkyrie and the Boone family, and not give Amber another thought, which would be the opposite in a death penalty case with all of the appeals. For the next 20 years, the family would have to relive that stuff.
Is the uniqueness of this case to help you with future cases at all? In terms of the double jeopardy?
Oh, no, I learned a tremendous amount. I now know a lot about jurisdictional battles between state and federal. Double jeopardy on the federal level and double jeopardy in Arkansas are different. Different jurisdictional challenges. I've learned a tremendous amount, certainly. So every case that a prosecutor prosecutes, there's always a unique issue. You do some research, you problem solve, right, and you learn something. So in that respect, there were many different things to learn from in this case.
Was the evidence that we got in the meeting yesterday from Amber surprising?
I was surprised in the sense that we did get some information. I questioned how willing she would be to talk and to be forthright. I do not think she was completely forthright, but I do think we got some questions answered. So I was surprised that she talked to us as long as she did.
Did she give you a motive?
It's kind of. It's hard to say. You know, she was at least partially motivated, according to her, by trying to really essentially manipulate her husband into staying in the marriage and being faithful. Whether that's an honest motive, I can't say, but that was one thing that she, you know, explained. It took us some time to get there in the interview, but.
That meeting with her yesterday was filling in some of those gaps. What were some of the major things that came out of it?
I just had her walk us through, you know, step by step throughout that day, right? And we got out maps and you know, where did you go here? Where did you go here? At what point did you make a decision to do this? At what point did you do this? Talked a little bit about, you know, when she created this Facebook profile, which was sort of casting the net, and what her plan was at that time. And I don't think she was really honest about that. Honestly, she tried to, in the beginning, act as though none of this was planned and it was a last-second decision. Anybody that's, you know, seen any of the evidence or read a probable cause affidavit knows that's nonsense. But we did get some specific answers, you know, in terms of where things were thrown from the truck, right? Phone and purse, locations at different times, when Amber pulled the gun, where she shot Ashley. So, yeah, I mean, there are some things that were meaningful from that, I think.
This was mentioned in court today, but just to say it with the cameras, you know, there had been an issue of judge assignment and a letter's been submitted for an audit into that. In court today, though, I think everyone, you, the defense, judges agreed that it wouldn't have that in effect. Can you maybe just comment on that?
I'll let Brian talk about it too, but it was a background issue that didn't affect the merits of the case or the trial in any way. It didn't motivate any decision.
No, and we support the letter and the recommendations of the circuit court to kind of get into the background facts. I mean, we don't know necessarily the background facts at this point. I'd like a fact finder to step in. The recommendation to have legislative audit handle that, I think, is a wise one. And honestly, it's something that will give us a chance not only to deal with past issues, but we're approaching a point where this county is going to expand to an 8th circuit. That circuit will have criminal jurisdiction as well. And I believe it would be smart to start weighing those issues out and determining if we need to make changes to processes early.
Is the audit going to take place?
As far as I know, the letter, I believe, has been sent out. And I've had a chance to speak to Judge Smith, so I believe an audit will be done. Now, time-wise on that, I can't necessarily answer that, but I'm looking forward to whatever fact-finding is done on that matter.
And then Brian, can you just comment on how, you know, you're proud of how your office handled this case? It's complicated, lots of issues, you know.
Again, I'm echoing the statements of multiple people who've been up here, but the work of the Benton County Sheriff's Office in this case, working with other law enforcement agencies to ensure that we pool our resources together, was instrumental in getting this case done forward. And I agree with Josh. A lot of what we could have done on the early issues in this case were taken out of our hands by the Western District of Missouri during the Biden administration. That became a problem for us going forward because we believe that this case should have been heard by a Benton County jury, and a Benton County jury should have made a determination on this case. We don't know what the recommendation of the jury would have been, but we still believe to this day that that's where this case should have lied. It is a hard thing, and I was in the meeting that we had after the last set of hearings to discuss those frustrations with them, and they did an excellent job in distilling all the stresses and strains that take place to our victims overall in dealing with a serious crime like this. They're right. It's been over 1,000 days since this incident took place. It's been over 1,000 days that they've had to mourn their family members, and it's been over 1,000 days where they've had to meet with us and deal with it over and over again. And that is kind of the disappointing part of doing this job, when you have to have the meetings with victims, and they asked us frankly, what are the chances that we will see a execution of a sentence if a jury makes finding? And I had to remind them, in Arkansas, we have 3 on death row out of this county. 2 of them were prosecuted not by my predecessor or his predecessor, but by 4 prosecuting attorneys ago. The other one was convicted of his crimes during the George Bush administration, the George Herbert Walker Bush administration. I was a high school freshman during that conviction. These cases unfortunately go on and go on and go on and go on. And sadly, that's the nature of these. The old maxim, justice delayed is justice denied, is as true for us regarding the speedy trial rules as it is for the imposition of a sentence. And that's a strain not only honestly on the family and the next of kin, but it's also a strain on the community as a whole.
And do you all have a preference of where she served her sentence?
I don't. It's not up to us.
We don't have control over it after the execution of the sentence. I just want to make sure that she is behind bars. I want to make sure that she is not a threat to anyone else in this community, and I want to make sure that the family can sleep well at night knowing that.
Where is she headed right now?
Well, right now, she'll go to the Benton County Jail. When a bed becomes open, she'll go to diagnostics and then be assigned to a facility. That's completely up to the Department of Corrections. We don't have any voice in that. My understanding is that that's how this process will go, and she'll stay in Arkansas unless the United States Marshals request her back, which could happen at any time.
Yeah, you all talked about that in court a little bit. So they made no, there's been no discussion about bringing her back to Missouri or wherever she was being held?
No, I mean, a year and a half ago, I had an astonishing number of conversations with different people in Missouri, right, and trying to negotiate some kind of resolution. But as of now, no. Ms. Waterman does not get a voice in where her sentence is carried out. And I, as long as she doesn't breathe free air again, it doesn't matter to me.
The judge made some statements toward the family and to Ms. Waterman about how there will be no option ever to be released for any reason. I mean, how substantial is that? Like, I mean, she has this brain mass and stuff. Is there any world or scenario where she could be released for medical reasons?
I mean, I think short of a pardon, I think that's what it would take. Some states, people sentenced to life can parole. Arkansas is not one of those states. So in Arkansas, life means life. And I think the only thing that would get her out would be a casket or a pardon.
We get motions for clemency from defendants all the time around here. But I will be blunt. As long as I'm the prosecuting attorney in Benton County, we will be sending a letter back to the Board of Parole saying that her case should be denied. She's a threat to the community.
I can't imagine a scenario in which she would ever be pardoned. I just don't even think it's a possibility.
If the family were to have decided we want to go forward with the death penalty, would you guys would have kept that going for years?
I think so. We would have continued to have those conversations with the family, and we were always really open and honest with them about like what the next steps were going to look like and down the road. That was a difficult call because there were a bunch of people in the community that says she's already been sentenced to life federally. it's a waste of resources to do this. But I think there's always a tipping point where, you know, morality and dealing with human beings outweighs, you know, a use of resources. And so we had never gotten to that point where it became an economics question. It was always, what can we do for the family?
Are you able to give us any insight about what the rest of Amber Waterman's life will look like in Cedar Fair prison?
No. So thankfully, I've never been incarcerated. So I couldn't say from personal experience. Who knows? I think it's different for everybody. But she'll be in a cage for the rest of her life. You know, if she goes to federal prison, maybe she might get an iPad, and Department of Corrections, she might not. I don't know. But it'll be different than every day of her life before October 31st, 2022. All right, well,
Anything else you'd like to add?
I'm just going to say one more time how inspiring the family has been. This is one of the most horrific and tragic things I've ever seen or dealt with. And they handled it with such poise and grace. It's just really, really, really incredible. And so they've touched me on a personal level. And I feel lucky to have walked part of this path with them, although I'll never approach their experience.
Any additional comments from you?
No, I want to echo those thoughts. Honestly, it has been a long time since the reading of a victim impact statement has boiled down the experience of a family who has dealt with violent crime this way, and I highly recommend that people review that, and they'll understand better all of the stresses and strains that a family goes through, not only in dealing with the death of a loved one, but also dealing with all of the things that they have to do in working with police and prosecutors on the investigation and prosecution of the case. I cannot commend them enough for their steadfastness in our work, and it has helped make this case, as difficult as it's been procedurally, to go forward as smoothly as it's gone.